Guest releases. Here are some case studies that'll make you realize that you really do need one. So imagine this. You publish a fantastic guest interview. It takes off. Your downloads spike, your sponsor's thrilled. Then, suddenly, the guest decides to demand that you take it down. They say that you never really gave permission, or they never really gave permission, or worse, that they threatened to sue. No signed release, no clear rights, just chaos. Well, today I am sharing the real world case studies that prove if you don't have a guest release for every episode, you are at serious risk. Stick around. Hey friends, I'm Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, and this is Legit Podcast Pro, where we help you turn your podcast into a business, one that's smart, protected, and profitable. If your show features guests, and I know most do, this episode could save your show, your income, your reputation. Save your bacon. Because the number of podcasters getting into trouble over missing or outdated guest releases is growing. In fact, I've had 3 different podcasters call me just in the last couple of weeks with similar stories. A guest changed their mind and now the podcaster has to scramble. So let's break it down. First is our first case study, a podcaster who did a great show, and the episode is gold, gets thousands of downloads, tons of buzz, and 2 big brand deals. A couple of weeks later, the guest emails saying, please remove the episode immediately. I didn't give permission for you to publish this. Well, the podcaster pushes back and says, of course you gave permission. You showed up and you recorded the episode with me. But here's the legal truth. Showing up and recording isn't really enough. That's implied consent, sure. But unless it's in writing that says it's irrevocable, guess what? That consent is revocable. And yes, it means the guest could pull the plug, even after it's been published and promoted. Now, technically, there's arguments. The podcaster owns the recording. They hit record. They did the editing. They fixed the audio. They relied on that implied consent and that it should remain irrevocable. But because they're the legal author of the final product doesn't necessarily give them all the rights. Ownership of the recording doesn't override the guest's personal rights, like their right to control how their voice, likeness, performance, and appearance are used, unless they've signed those rights away irrevocably. And without a signed release, well, the episode had to come down. Sponsors got pretty ticked off. One of them backed out. The reputation of the host was damaged. This is not hypothetical. This is happening. That's why it's so important to have a written, signed guest release, and that should be non-negotiable. Our second case study is a podcaster who edited the episode in good faith. They tightened things up, smoothed out the delivery, removed some tangents, the ums and ahs, you know, the kind of thing. And the guest just wasn't happy. They claimed that the edits changed some of the meaning of their words and made them sound arrogant or took things out of context. Next thing they know, the podcaster gets a demand letter from the guest's lawyer accusing them of misrepresentation and threatening a defamation claim. Now, here's the thing. This podcaster did have an email confirmation of the guest appearance, right? Just the calendar booking. But there was no signed release, no statement about editing rights, no waiver of any rights of approval. And that was the big mistake. A proper guest release would have covered all of this. A permission to record, the right to edit for clarity and time, no expectations about approval or final review, irrevocable consent to record and publish, and even better, if the podcaster had saved the raw, unedited file, they could have demonstrated that nothing meaningful was altered. I don't know whether that was the case in this situation, but it's a good idea. Anyway, so it's their word against the guests, and that's not a good position to be in. So protect yourself by doing 2 things. 1, use a guest release that spells out your editorial rights and publication rights. And 2, keep a backup of your raw recordings just in case. Now, our third case study involves the use of AI. A little newer, podcaster ran their guest's audio through an AI plugin to clean up background noise, polish the voice. The final result was clean, clear, guest sounded confident, but when the guest heard it, they were furious. That's not how I talk, she said. You made me sound robotic. You altered my personality. And the guest demanded that the episode be pulled and threatened to post about it publicly. Now, here's the rub. The podcaster had used an older version of the guest release that I recommend, but it didn't say anything about AI or post-processing or what kinds of tools could be used in the production. And even though the content wasn't changed, no words were fabricated. The tonal changes and enhancement felt manipulative to the guest. So the podcaster had a couple of choices: pull the episode and take the hit, or leave it up and risk a public relations meltdown. So they pulled it. Now, what should have been a great interview ended up being a total loss, a waste of time, energy, resources, and reputation, all because their release didn't reflect their use of modern production tools. So the lesson here is that if you're using AI or other advanced editing tools, even just to sweeten the sound, you need that permission, that consent baked into your release. So here's what I now recommend that you include: something along the lines of: the guest consents to the use of audio processing, editing, and artificial intelligence tools to enhance sound quality, provided the resulting material doesn't materially alter the guest's intended meaning or fundamental tone. That provides clarity and transparency and protection. So, what should go into that guest release? Well, it's a short, simple legal document, but it should cover a lot. So, here's what every guest release really needs to include. First off, permission to record the interview. Secondly, the right to edit, adapt, or remix the content. Third, consent for the distribution worldwide in any format forever. A waiver of approvals, so you don't need their sign off before you publish it or repurpose the content. That AI information needs to be in there. You need the consent to be irrevocable, so they can't change their mind later, and the agreement that no compensation is going to be owed unless you want to, and then you specify the compensation. And finally, ideally, the right to use the guest's name, voice, and likeness for promotional purposes, promoting the podcast, not promoting other things. And a clause that says that the agreement survives even if the guest changes their mind. There's lots of sample language out there, maybe something like: guest grants producer the perpetual irrevocable right to record, edit, publish, and promote the interview in any media now known or later developed, and waives any claims related to such use. Simple, effective, and binding. So there are a few things that a guest release can't do. Just to be clear, a guest release is not a license to twist someone's words or publish lies or engage in character assassination. It doesn't protect you from lawsuits if you actually do something wrong to defame or intrude into their privacy or something like that. And it doesn't let you use content out of context with malicious intent. What it does is give you clear legal permission to use the content as presented without fear that your guest is going to come back later and cause problems. So if you're finding this episode helpful and you want to help keep the show smart and safe, here's how you can help me keep making these. Please hit the subscribe button, share the episode with your podcasting friends, and tap the bell so you're notified if you're watching on YouTube. Just make sure you're subscribed and get every episode as they're released. The show is here to help creators like you stay protected and profitable. And listen, you don't need to reinvent the wheel here with these releases. I have drafted a guest release that includes all these essential tools and clauses that we've talked about, plus the AI clause to keep things current. And I give it away for free. Just go over to podcastrelease.com and download the template now. Use it with every guest every time. Practice safe guest, I call it. And if you want to see how this fits into the bigger picture, how your podcast becomes a real business with real protection, or serves your existing business with real protection, check out the sample lesson from my Easy Legal for Podcasters program at gordonfiremark.com/levelup. You wouldn't build your house without a foundation, so don't build a podcast without a guest release. These stories, well, I wish I could say they were extreme, but they're not. They're actually pretty common. So avoid the drama, protect your work, and give your guests peace of mind while giving yourself legal protection. Get that free release from podcastrelease.com and use it every time before you hit record. I'm Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, and this has been Legit Podcast Pro. Keep on creating, keep on growing, and keep it legit. I'll see you next time.